I am Judith J. I am Associate Professor of Mathematics and Statistics here at Boston University. I am currently visiting Harvard Radcliffe's Institute for Advanced Studies to enjoy a sabbatical. I am going to talk here about causal mediation analysis and how causal mediation analysis can be used to look at the promise of potential COVID-19 treatment that has been developed by people from the ICU here at Boston Medical Center. And they wanted to do causal mediation analysis to look at the promise of that treatment. And the problem that they had, it has only been used in mice, where it is very successful, but it has not been used in humans. This is joint work with a group of Boston University Medical Center ICU physicians. So the motivation behind causal mediation analysis, we try to estimate, to divide the treatment effect into a part that is mediated through a covariate M, N for mediator. This is called the indirect effect, and the effect that goes through all other pathways, so not through the mediator M, and that's called the direct effect. For example, A could be a blood pressure lowering medication. The outcome Y could be heart attack, yes or no. And the mediation question then is, how much of the effect of the blood pressure lowering medication A is mediated by the effect of A on blood pressure M, and how much, if any, works through other pathways? This is the standard mediation question. A little bit of a different question is what I'm talking about today, is in COVID patients admitted to the ICU, what is the indirect effect of a treatment A that eliminates desperate positive neutrophil nets M on the final SOFA score Y? And the SOFA score describes the degree of multi-organ failure and is a measure that is commonly used in the ICU to see how sick people are. The ICU physicians came to me and they asked, what is the effect of the SOFA score, that is the degree of multi-organ failure, when the people are admitted to the ICU? They see this as a treatment. It's something that affects the patients, so they think of this as a treatment. So what is the effect of the SOFA score when people are admitted to the ICU on the SOFA score at the time of discharge that is mediated through these desperate positive neutrophil nets? And how much, if any, goes through either other pathways? So it's a direct cause of the SOFA score at ICU discharge. And the reason why they came with this particular question was they don't have outcome data under treatment. So they thought we cannot really do other causal mediation analysis. Here we have a treatment that is a SOFA 1 score that they have for a lot of different people, and they have it for a lot of different values. So they can actually estimate the path, this path and this path. So that's the analysis that we did in the beginning. We looked how much of the effect of SOFA score at ICU admission on SOFA score at discharge is mediated through desperate positive neutrophil nets. But what they actually wanted to do is use this to figure out how useful is the treatment that works so well in mice. So then I started, okay, let's make a different causal diagram. Here we have this treatment that they have been developing. It works well in mice. It eliminates in mice all desperate positive neutrophil nets. So let's just call that the treatment then, because it's a treatment. And then here we have the desperate positive neutrophil nets, and here we have the SOFA score at the time of discharge. Now, when you know about causal mediation analysis, you know that you need all the common causes of the mediator and the outcome. Well, from the data that we saw before, the SOFA score at ICU admission is a common cause of the mediator and the outcome, so we put it in the DAG. So what we can do with this, we cannot estimate this arrow here. But it turns out that with proper definitions and proper care, we can actually estimate this path here from A to M to SOFA score at the time of discharge. Because for that, we have the idea that probably also in humans, or hopefully also in humans, the treatment will eliminate all desperate positive neutrophil nets. So we have this arrow, and this arrow we can actually get from the off-treatment data, because it's how the SOFA score at ICU discharge depends on the mediator when it just comes about. So doing that, we looked at the organic indirect effect of a treatment A that eliminates positive neutrophil nets. And we can look at that, we compare the outcome that is actually observed in these people, compare it with what if first the common causes come about, then the mediator is equal to 0 because the treatment is supposed to eliminate all positive neutrophil nets. And then the outcome comes about as though these 0 neutrophil net, positive neutrophil nets come about under no treatment. In other words, after the neutrophil nets come about, it is as though the system follows the natural course, as though these neutrophil nets were 0 by nature. So we can look at this. This is the organic indirect effect, or it is also the pure indirect effect, if you're familiar with the terminology in causal mediation analysis. And then we have this formula here. It's very easy to estimate. This is just the average in all the people because they're all untreated, right? So we can just average the outcome under no treatment while everybody's untreated. And then here we have the expected value of the outcome. We can just estimate this with a linear regression model, and they wanted to do with interactions. That's all fine. So we estimated this expectation depending on the mediator and the common cause, that in this case was the SOFA score at baseline. And then what we did, we looked at so the important thing here is no outcome data under treatment are needed to do this kind of exercise, because we are only estimating the indirect effects and not the total or the direct effect. The indirect effect, however, is the one that is what they try to do before they enter a trial. It's the intended effect of the treatment. No, so in the indirect effect estimate was a decrease in the SOFA score at ICU discharge of 0.71. The doctors were most interested in people who came into the ICU with a SOFA score at least 2, and there the result was more promising. It was almost a 1 point decrease in the SOFA score at ICU discharge. And this was something that was clinically very meaningful. So we reformulated the problem that originally came with, because there is this misconception about causal mediation analysis that you can only do this if you have on-treatment outcome data, which is the case if you want to split up the effect. But if you're only interested in the indirect, in this case, the intended effect, you don't need on-treatment outcome data.